I'm Lauren Mitchell, 31, and 7 months ago, I inherited my granddad's cozy lakeside retreat. It was supposed to be my refuge, a place to escape the whirlwind of my advertising job in Portland. That Friday, I was craving a quiet weekend alone, just me, a good book, and the soothing sound of the lake. But as I turned the final bend of Cedar Trail, my heart sank. A massive moving van loomed in the driveway, cardboard boxes littered the lawn, and through the window I saw a pregnant woman hanging baby decorations in my home. Before I dive into this chaos, drop a comment below to tell me where you're tuning in from, give this a thumbs up, and subscribe to follow this wild family drama. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this unfolds. My granddad Henry was my everything growing up. When my parents split when I was 9, Grandpa Henry became my anchor. From age 10 until I graduated college, I spent a month each summer at his humble retreat by Lake Wildwood in northern Oregon. Those days shaped who I am. The retreat itself wasn't glamorous. A two-bedroom wooden cabin with a brick fireplace, a sprawling veranda, and a private pier stretching into Lake Wildwood. What made it magical was how Grandpa Henry taught me life's lessons there. How to bait a hook and clean a trout. How to pick out bird songs at dawn. How to steer a kayak through choppy waters. How to kindle a fire that would burn steady till morning. "This place has a soul, Laurie," he'd say, using my childhood nickname. Not the spooky kind from Campfire Tales, the kind that builds you up, that sticks with you. We'd sit on the pier at sunset, feet skimming the cool water, savoring homemade peach sorbet, and chatting about everything. As I got older, those talks grew from simple stories to deep conversations about my hopes, fears, and ambitions. When anxiety hit hard in high school, it was at the retreat where Grandpa taught me to meditate by the lake. When I questioned my career path in college, it was on that pier where he helped me chart my future. The retreat was more than just a place. It was a symbol of unwavering love and guidance. When Grandpa Henry was diagnosed with heart failure 4 years ago, our family came together. My sister Claire visited often with her husband Mark. My parents, despite their divorce, both pitched in with doctor visits. But I was the one who moved into his main house in Salem for a year to care for him daily. During that time, Mark started dropping hints about the retreat. "Henry sure cherishes that old spot," he'd say offhandedly. "Claire and I have always pictured raising kids in a place like that, far from the city hustle." I brushed off his comments, too focused on keeping Grandpa comfortable to engage in inheritance talk. 3 months before he passed, Grandpa Henry revised his will with his lawyer, Ellen. Afterward, he called us all into his living room. "I've made my choices with a clear mind and heart," he said, his voice frail but his gray eyes still piercing. "The Salem house will be sold and the money split evenly among you. My savings will be divided the same way." Then he looked right at me. "Lauren, the retreat is yours. You've always understood its essence. I trust you'll keep its spirit alive." The room went still. I felt a rush of gratitude tangled with the ache of knowing he'd soon be gone. Claire pulled me into a hug after, whispering, "He chose right. You love that place more than anyone." But Mark's response was off. His congrats sounded flat, his smile tight. Later in the kitchen, I overheard him griping to Claire, "It should have been ours. We're the ones planning a family. Why does Lauren need a whole retreat? She's single." Claire stood up for me. "It's not about need, Mark. It's about connection. Lauren and Grandpa had something special there." Still, he pressed, family property should serve the whole family. In the months that followed, as Grandpa's health faded, Mark grew bolder about shared use of the retreat. He'd pull me aside with remarks like, "When it's yours, we should work out a schedule. A couple weeks for you, a couple for us. Fair, right?" I'd dodge the topic, not wanting to stir up drama while Grandpa was still with us. "We'll figure it out later," I'd say. After Grandpa passed and the will was finalized, I became the retreat's legal owner. At the small gathering after the funeral, Mark cornered me again. "So, about booking the retreat for summer," he started. This time I was firm. "Mark, I hear you, but I'm not ready to set up sharing plans yet. I need time to settle into this." "But Claire and I were hoping to bring the kids there this summer," he pushed. Claire and Mark didn't have kids yet, though they'd been talking about starting a family for ages. "I get it," I said, "but the retreat is my private property now. When I'm ready for guests, you'll be first on my list." His jaw tightened. "That's pretty self-centered, don't you think? Keeping a family treasure all to yourself?" My sister Claire tugged him away before I could reply, but that exchange left me rattled. It was obvious Mark never really came to terms with the fact that the retreat was mine alone. Tuesday morning meetings at Horizon Creative were always grueling. As lead campaign strategist, I had to deliver weekend analytics to our top-tier clients. That Tuesday, our major client, Pure Vita Wellness, threatened to drop their multi-million-dollar contract because our recent ads weren't hitting the mark. "We need a full strategy revamp by Thursday," my manager Carla demanded. "Lauren, you're spearheading this. Get it done." That meant marathon workdays loomed ahead. By Thursday night, my stress was through the roof. My phone lit up with a call from Claire. "Hey sis," she said, her tone quieter than usual. "Can we talk for a sec?" I propped the phone against my shoulder, fingers still flying across my laptop. "For you, always, what's going on?" "Mark and I split up a month ago," she said. "I'm crashing at Dad's place for now." My hands froze mid-keystroke. "What? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Claire let out a heavy sigh. "It's messy and humiliating. Mark been seeing someone else. A woman named Ivy from his office." "I'm so sorry, Claire," I said, genuinely stunned. Mark and Claire had been a couple since their university days, nearly 12 years. "There's more," Claire went on. "Ivy's pregnant, about 8 months along. He's been with her for over a year." I was floored. That meant he'd been cheating on my sister while we were caring for our ailing granddad. "The worst part is how he's suddenly all in on playing house and starting a family with her," Claire said, her voice thick with resentment. "He always told me he wasn't ready for kids. Last week he even bought a bassinet." After consoling Claire, I promised to swing by to see her soon. We ended the call and I tried to dive back into work, but my thoughts kept circling back to Mark's betrayal. Just past 11 p.m., my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Lauren, it's Mark. Can I borrow the retreat this weekend? Just for a day or two." I stared at the message, jaw clenched. After what Claire had just shared, he had the gall to ask for favors. I shot back, "No, Mark, that doesn't work for me." His reply came fast. "Come on, I'm in a bind, moving out of the apartment and need a temporary spot. It's just sitting there unused." I repeated, "No, please respect my decision." The typing dots flickered on, off, then on again. "I thought families supported each other. Guess I misjudged you." I left it unanswered. The next morning, another text rolled in. "You're being unfair. Claire and I are just hitting a rough spot." I need a quiet place to clear my head. Over coffee with my college bestie, Megan, I showed her the texts. This guy got some nerve, Megan said, rolling her eyes. Throwing around that family supports family line, total manipulation. I know, I said, stirring my latte, and he didn't even mention he's left my sister for his pregnant girlfriend. You need to shut this down hard, Megan advised. No room for him to twist your words. That night, I sent Mark a final text. Let me be perfectly clear, you do not have permission to use my retreat. Not this weekend, not ever. Don't go there, don't ask again. His reply, a single thumbs down emoji. By Thursday, I'd clocked 4 straight 15-hour days. The Pure Vita campaign was rebuilt from the ground up, but it took a toll. My eyes stung from staring at screens, my neck was knotted with tension, and my brain felt like it was wading through fog. You need a breather, Carla said after our last client meeting. Take Friday off, you've earned it. That's when I decided to head to the retreat myself. A long weekend of crisp lake air, peace, and solitude was exactly what I needed to recharge. I texted Claire to push our visit to the following week, tossed some clothes into a duffel, and hit the road by 2 p.m. during the 4-hour drive north. I felt my stress start to ease. Windows rolled down, my favorite playlist blaring, the scent of cedar trees growing stronger as the city faded in my rear view. I stopped at a small market in the last town before the retreat, grabbing comfort essentials, ingredients for waffles, fresh peaches, a bag of artisanal coffee, and a bottle of Pinot Noir. As I turned onto the narrow lane leading to the retreat, I was already picturing my night. A glass of wine on the pier, watching the sun dip below the horizon just like Granddad and I used to do. Then I saw it. A massive moving truck blocking my driveway. The moving truck was parked crookedly across the dirt driveway, its back doors flung open like a hungry jaw. Cardboard boxes cluttered the veranda, some already bursting with their contents, pots and pans, blankets, family snapshots. A silver hatchback with a baby on board decal sat next to the truck. My fingers clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles blanched. This couldn't be real, not after I'd made it crystal clear it wasn't allowed. I pulled up behind the truck, boxing it in, and took a deep breath to steady myself. Part of me wanted to dial the sheriff right then. Another part needed to verify my gut feeling before blowing things up. Stepping out of my car, I noticed more clues. A pile of men's shirts slung over the porch banister. A partially built bassinet propped against the wall. A water dish for a pet, though no animal was in sight. I circled the retreat, peering through the windows. The living room was a mess, crammed with unfamiliar boxes and furniture. Granddad's vintage fishing poles, once proudly displayed above the fireplace, were carelessly stacked in a corner. Through the guest room window, I saw a woman with chestnut hair fumbling to hang a mobile of forest animals above what used to be my cozy reading corner. The room was unrecognizable, painted soft green with animal stickers and a diaper station. They were turning it into a nursery. In my retreat without my consent, my hands shook as I approached the front door. I turned my key in the lock and stepped inside. "Hello," I called, my voice calmer than the storm inside me. A surprised yelp came from the guest room, and a very pregnant woman appeared in the hallway. She had warm eyes, looked about 35, and rested a hand on her swollen belly. "Oh," she said, startled. "You must be Claire. Mark said you might pop by to lend a hand. I'm Ivy." Her assumption threw me off. "I'm not Claire," I said carefully. "I'm Lauren Mitchell. This is my retreat." Confusion clouded Ivy's face. "Lauren, Mark's sister-in-law, but Mark said..." she faltered, uncertainty creeping into her eyes. What exactly did Mark tell you about this place? I asked, fighting to keep my tone even. That it's your family's retreat and you're letting us stay here while we hunt for a new home, Ivy said. He told me how kind you were to let us use it, especially with the baby due in 5 weeks. She patted her belly, my stomach turned to ice. Ivy, I never offered the retreat to Mark, I said. In fact, I told him explicitly he couldn't use it. I inherited this property from my granddad. It's mine alone. Ivy's face drained of color. But we're moving in, she said, her voice trembling. Mark said we could stay as long as we needed. He's already canceled his lease. Her panic grew. He said you were thrilled to help us out during this transition. None of that's true, I said firmly. Mark has no permission to be here, let alone move in. The crunch of tires on dirt cut us off. Through the window, I saw Mark's gray SUV pull up next to my car. He climbed out, juggling takeout containers, humming like he owned the place. The door swung open and Mark stopped dead when he saw me. Lauren, he said, plastering on a grin, didn't think you'd show up till tomorrow. I never said I was coming tomorrow, I replied, my voice low and sharp. I told you not to come here at all. What do you think you're doing, Mark? He set the food on a box and raised his hands in a calming gesture. Let's not make a fuss in front of Ivy. She's in a sensitive state. Answer me, I pressed. Why are you moving into my retreat after I explicitly said no? Mark's face tightened. You're being unreasonable, Lauren. You've got this big retreat sitting empty most of the year. We need a place to live. It's an obvious fix. An obvious fix would be respecting my property and my boundaries, I snapped. It's family property, Mark argued, his tone sharpening. Your granddad would have wanted it to support family in need. Don't you dare bring up my granddad, I warned. This retreat was left to me alone, not the family. You have no claim here. Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice. Come on, Lauren. Ivy's 8 months pregnant. We need a stable place. We've already started settling in. You can't just kick out a pregnant woman. I glanced at Ivy, who looked distraught, then back at Mark. You put her in this mess, not me. You lied to her about having my permission. We're not going anywhere, Mark said flatly. I've already rerouted my mail and set up the utilities under my name. The movers are returning tomorrow with the rest of our belongings. This is against the law, I said sharply. It's trespassing and an attempt to steal my property. Mark scoffed, his laugh chilling. Go ahead, call the police on a pregnant woman. See how that goes over with the family, with the neighbors. You'll be the bad guy, not me. His manipulation was so obvious it left me speechless. He'd engineered this entire mess, betting on social pressure and my own compassion to bully me into giving in. You have until sunrise to pack up and get out, I said, my voice steady. Both of you? Or what? Mark taunted, stepping closer, looming over me to intimidate. This is done, Lauren. The sooner you get that, the smoother this goes for everyone. We're settling in, we're building the nursery. This is our place now. In that moment, I saw Mark for who he truly was, not just my sister's ex-husband, but a man who'd deceive and coerce to seize what he wanted. A man who'd betrayed my sister while our granddad was fatting, lied to his pregnant partner, and now thought he could claim my retreat through sheer audacity. This will never be your home, I said softly. Not ever. A heavy silence blanketed the retreat. Ivy had slipped back into the guest room, and I could hear her quiet sobs through the thin walls. Part of me ached for her. She was clearly caught in Mark's web of lies too. but a bigger part of me burned with fury. Mark had sprawled out in Granddad's old armchair, scrolling his phone like he owned the place. His casual arrogance made my skin crawl. "You need to talk to Ivy," I said. "She deserves the truth about what's going on." "I'll deal with Ivy," Mark said, eyes glued to his screen. "She's just emotional from the pregnancy. Best to let her settle down." I headed to the kitchen for a glass of water, needing a moment to think. On the counter, I spotted moving papers listing the retreat as Mark's new address. He'd been plotting this for weeks, carefully laying the foundation for a permanent takeover. When I returned to the living room, Mark had vanished outside. Through the window, I saw him packing, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing wildly, scheming his next move, no doubt. I tapped lightly on the guest room door. "Ivy, can we chat?" The door creaked open, revealing Ivy perched on the bed's edge, eyes puffy from crying. "I'm so lost," she said. "Mark swore we had your blessing to be here." I sat across from her, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm sorry you're caught in this, but you need to know the truth. Mark never asked if you could live here, and when he suggested visiting, I flat out said no." Ivy wiped her tears. "He told me you were overjoyed to help us, especially with the baby coming, that we could stay until we found the right house, even if it took months." My jaw clenched. "That's a lie. This retreat is mine alone. It's not family property, and Mark has no right to offer it to anyone." "Where are we supposed to go?" Ivy asked, hands shielding her belly. "Mark gave up his lease. My apartment contract ended 2 months ago when I moved in with him temporarily. We're out of options." Her desperation hit me hard, but so did Mark's calculated cruelty. He'd manufactured this crisis on purpose. Before I could reply, the front door slammed. Mark stormed into the room, his face red with rage. "What did you do to the locks?" he demanded. "What are you talking about? I haven't touched any locks," I said, genuinely puzzled. "The garage, I can't get in. Did you swap the locks?" I stood, squaring my shoulders. "The garage has always had its own key, one you don't have because this isn't your property." "I need access," Mark snapped. "We're storing extra boxes there." "No, you're not," I said firmly. "You're not storing anything here because you're not staying." Mark leaned in, his voice a menacing hiss. "Listen up. I just talked to the neighbors, told them we're moving in to look after the family retreat while you're tied up in the city. They're delighted to have full-time residents. Everyone thinks it's a great setup." His calculated moves left me stunned. "You're trying to fake some kind of community approval." "I also mentioned how fragile you've been since your granddad passed," he added, his smile icy. "How you sometimes get mixed up about plans we've agreed on. If trouble starts, they'll know who's credible." The threat was unmistakable. If I pushed back, he'd paint me as unhinged and himself as the rational one. "Get out of my retreat," I said, my voice trembling. "Make me," Mark shot back. "Better yet, call the cops. I'll show them the mail I've redirected here. The utilities I've switched to my name. I'll tell them about our verbal agreement you're now reneging on. I'll have poor pregnant Ivy sobbing about how you're trying to leave her homeless." Ivy gasped. "Mark, what are you saying?" He ignored her. "Face it, Lauren, the smart move is to let this go. We're staying for at least a year, maybe more if we love it here." Something in me broke. This is my granddad's legacy to me, not you. I won't be coerced or bullied out of what's mine. Mark's face darkened. "Then this is going to get messy for everyone." I grabbed my bag and keys. "I need air." Outside, I slumped into my car, hands shaking too much to start the engine. Tears of rage spilled down my cheeks. How had this happened? How had a peaceful weekend escape spiraled into this disaster? I called Megan. He's done what? She gasped after I spilled the story. That's not just overstepping, Lauren, that's illegal. He's covered every angle, I said. He's set it up so I look heartless if I fight back. Document everything, Megan urged. Snap photos of their stuff there without permission. Record talks if it's legal in your state. Call a lawyer first thing tomorrow. What about tonight? I can't stay here with him, but I can't leave them alone in the retreat either. Is there a motel nearby where you can regroup and plan? There was a cozy inn about 15 minutes away. Yeah, but it feels like giving up. It's not giving up, Megan reassured me. It's a tactical step back to prepare a strong response. Don't confront him while you're upset. That's what he's banking on. After hanging up, I sat in the car but didn't drive off right away. Instead, I started snapping photos of the moving truck, the boxes, the utility papers, proof of their unauthorized presence. As I finished, Mark stepped out of the retreat. Giving up already? He jeered. Figures, you always back down when things get real. I ignored Mark's taunts and discreetly started recording a video on my phone, keeping it tucked close. For the record, I said clearly, you do not have permission to be on this property. You're not allowed to change locks, redirect mail, or claim residency here. You're trespassing, and I'm officially asking you to leave. Mark's attitude shifted the second he noticed I was gathering evidence. Stop recording, he barked, lunging for my phone. I stepped back swiftly. Lay a hand on me or my phone, and it's assault. His face twisted with fury. You think you're so smart, don't you? Always the perfect Lauren, the family favorite who gets everything handed to her. His outburst laid bare a resentment I hadn't fully grasped before. This wasn't just about the retreat, it was about years of grudges he'd been nursing. This isn't about me, I said evenly, still recording. It's about your actions. You chose to lie to Ivy about having my approval to be here. Just then, Ivy stepped onto the veranda, having overheard us. You told me Lauren gave us the green light for the retreat, she said to Mark, her voice shaking. You said everything was set. Mark whirled around. Go back inside, Ivy. This doesn't involve you. It absolutely involves me, Ivy cried. You've put our baby's future in jeopardy with these lies. Where are we supposed to go if we can't stay here? We're staying, Mark snapped. Lauren's the one being unreasonable. By refusing to let you steal my property, I cut in. Ivy struggled down the steps, one hand bracing her lower back. I can't be part of this, Mark. You promised me security. You swore you'd be honest after everything with Claire. This is wrong. Mark's face flushed. Don't you dare take her side. After all I've done for you and the baby? What you've done is deceive me, Ivy said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Again. She turned to me. I'm so sorry, Lauren. I had no clue. I never would have agreed to this if I'd known the truth. Suddenly, Ivy gasped, clutching her belly and bending slightly. Ivy! I rushed to her side, steadying her arm. Are you okay? Just a sharp pain, she said, wincing. They've been coming and going all day. My heart raced. How often are these pains? Maybe every 15 minutes, she said. Probably just Braxton Hicks. My doctor said they're normal. We should get you checked out to be safe, I said firmly. 8 months is too early for labor. Mark stood rooted in place, seemingly thrown by the medical emergency and his crumbling scheme. "I'll drive her to the hospital," I said, shooting Mark a hard look. "You stay here and start packing your stuff. When we return, I expect to see progress." As I guided Ivy to my car, leaving Mark standing helplessly in the driveway, I knew we'd crossed a point of no return. The nearest hospital was a 30-minute drive to Willow Creek. As we drove, Ivy called her doctor, who suggested a visit as a precaution but noted stress-related Braxton Hicks contractions were typical. "I'm so humiliated," Ivy said after hanging up, staring at the passing trees. "I had no idea Mark was lying about the retreat." "It's not on you," I said, focusing on the curving rural road. "Mark's the manipulator. He misled us both." Ivy gazed out the window. "He's been doing that a lot, saying one thing then I find out it's not true." "Like what?" I asked, curious about the man who'd been married to my sister for over a decade. "He told me he and Claire were apart for 8 months before we started seeing each other," Ivy said. "I later learned it was barely a month. He claimed he'd told her about us, but then Claire called me at work, completely blindsided." The puzzle pieces clicked together. "When did you find out you were pregnant?" "Around Thanksgiving," she said. "I wanted to break it off when I realized how much he'd lied, but then," she rested a hand on her belly, "I couldn't go through with an abortion. It didn't feel right for me." "And Mark?" I prompted. Ivy gave a bitter laugh. Suddenly he was all in, picking out baby names, planning the nursery, talking about a future together. It was a total reversal from the guy who'd once told me he wasn't sure he ever wanted kids when we first crossed paths. We rode in quiet until we reached Willow Creek Medical Center. The ER was thankfully slow, and Ivy was whisked into an exam room while I lingered in the waiting area. "I used the downtime to call Claire." "Mark did what?" she gasped when I filled her in. "He set up camp in the retreat without your okay and won't budge." I confirmed. "I'm at the hospital with Ivy now." "Is she all right?" "I think so, just contractions from stress most likely." Claire let out a weary sigh. "I'm so sorry, Lauren. I should have warned you he might pull something like this. He's been spiraling since I asked for the split." "This isn't just spiraling," I said. "It's deliberate and manipulative." "That's Mark," Claire said, her voice heavy with regret. "When he's backed into a corner, people stop being people to him. They're either hurdles or pawns. It's why I walked away. I realized I'd never be a real person to him, just a way to get what he wanted." Her words hit me hard. I never saw that side of him before. "He's good at hiding it," she said, "until he doesn't." After we hung up, I dialed the local sheriff's non-emergency line. The dispatcher patched me through to Sheriff Daniels, who listened patiently as I laid out the situation. "Unfortunately, Ms. Mitchell, this is a tricky spot," he said. "If he's made any kind of residency claim, even a fake one, it could turn into a civil issue needing a formal eviction." "But he just showed up today," I argued. "I have proof I told him he couldn't be there." "That strengthens your case," Daniels said. "We can treat it as trespassing then. I'll send a deputy to meet you at the property to make sure he leaves peacefully." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you, we're at the hospital now, but we'll be back in a couple of hours. I'll have Deputy Carter meet you there at 5:30. And Ms. Mitchell, keep records of everything, photos, videos, texts. If this goes to court, you'll need that proof." Ivy came out of the exam room looking drained but calmer. "False alarm," she said. "The doctor said it's just stress and low hydration. I need to take it easy and avoid drama for a few days." I nodded, already piecing together a plan. I'm booking you a motel room for tonight. Tomorrow we'll sort out what's next for you. I can't afford a motel, Ivy said, her voice tight with worry. I've been on unpaid leave from my job for a month because of sciatica. I've got you covered, I reassured her. This isn't your problem to solve. On the drive back, I told Ivy about my call with the sheriff. She agreed to head straight to the motel while I went to the retreat with the deputy. The Comfort Inn in town had an open room and I paid for 4 nights up front, giving Ivy my number and promising to check in tomorrow. Thank you, she said, her eyes earnest as I turned to go. You could hate me for this, but you're helping me instead. I don't hate you, Ivy, I said. You're as much a victim of Mark's schemes as anyone. When Deputy Carter and I arrived at the retreat at 5:30, the scene was worse than I'd feared. The front door was propped wide open. Inside, chairs were tipped over and several of Granddad's vintage photos lay smashed on the floor. Looks like someone threw a fit, Carter said, his hand resting near his holster. We found Mark in the backyard, torching documents in the fire pit. When he spotted the deputy, his face flickered between defiance and panic. "Mark Reynolds?" Carter called. "I'm Deputy Carter with the county sheriff's office. We've got a report of trespassing on private property." Mark stood tall, putting on an aggrieved look. "This must be a mix-up, officer. This is family property. I have every right to be here." I stepped forward, holding a binder. "I have the deed and my granddad's will right here. The retreat belongs to me, Lauren Mitchell, and me alone. Mark has no legal claim." Carter examined the papers closely. "These look solid, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Mitchell has the authority to decide who's allowed here." "We had a verbal deal," Mark insisted, glaring at me. "I have texts proving otherwise," I said, showing Carter our messages where I clearly denied permission. Carter turned to Mark. "Sir, you've got 2 choices. Leave with your stuff willingly or face arrest for criminal trespassing. Ms. Mitchell has made it clear you're not welcome." Mark's face twisted with anger. "This is absurd. I have rights." "You have no claim to this property," Deputy Carter said bluntly. "So what's it going to be?" For a tense moment, I braced for Mark to dig in his heels. Then his posture sagged and he mumbled, "All right, I'll grab my things." "I'll need to oversee that," Carter said. "It's protocol." It took nearly 3 hours for Mark to load his and Ivy's belongings into his SUV and the moving van. With every box he carried, his bitterness seemed to deepen. As he got ready to leave, he shot me a venomous glare. "This isn't the end, Lauren. The family's going to hear how you treated a pregnant woman. I'll fight for my share of this retreat in court. Everyone will see who you really are." Carter stepped in front of me. "That's enough, Mr. Reynolds. Any threats or harassment will lead to more charges." Mark let out a scornful huff but stayed silent. He climbed into his SUV while Carter made sure the moving van driver had new delivery instructions. As their vehicles vanished down the dirt road, a wave of relief crashed over me. Carter handed me his card. "Call right away if he comes back. And I'd get those locks changed tonight. I know a good emergency locksmith in town." After Carter left, I stood in the middle of the trashed retreat, taking in the damage. It wasn't just the flipped chairs or shattered glass that stung, it was the violation of my safe haven. This place, once a symbol of peace and comfort, felt defiled. But as I gathered the broken pieces of Granddad's old photo frames, carefully saving the pictures inside, I made a quiet vow. I would restore this retreat. Mark's actions wouldn't ruin what this place meant to me. I called the locksmith Carter recommended, who showed up within the hour and swapped out all the exterior locks. That night, I slept restlessly on the sofa, startling at every creak from the forest outside, wondering if Mark would follow through on his veiled threats. The next morning, a soft knock at the door jolted me awake. Wary and groggy, I checked the peephole and saw Claire standing on the veranda, balancing two steaming coffee cups and a bag from a nearby bakery. "Your backup has arrived," she said with a grin when I opened the door. "I hit the road at dawn after you texted about the new locks." Her simple act of support brought tears to my eyes. We hugged tightly before taking stock of the mess inside. "Mark never took losing well," Claire said, eyeing the chaos. "But this is a new low even for him." We spent the morning tidying up, piecing the retreat back together. As we scrubbed broken glass from picture frames, Claire opened up about the unraveling of her marriage over the past 2 years. "He got obsessed with keeping up appearances," she said. "The perfect house, the flashiest car, the right social circle. When I couldn't get pregnant after trying for 3 years, he started blaming me, saying I was robbing him of the life he deserved." "That's awful," I said, pausing my broom. "You never told me," Claire shrugged. "It was embarrassing. Then I found messages between him and Ivy on his phone. The way he talked about me," she trailed off, blinking back tears. "You deserved so much better," I said firmly. "So did Ivy," Claire replied, catching me off guard. "She's young and naive. Mark has a knack for making you feel like you're everything to him until you're not useful anymore." By late afternoon, we'd mostly restored the retreat, though the emotional scars lingered. I called Ivy to check in, relieved to hear she was settling in at the motel. "I've been thinking," I told her. "I know folks at the Willow Creek Women's Network. They offer temporary housing for women in tough spots. Want me to make a call?" Ivy's voice trembled with gratitude. "Really? That would be a lifeline. I've been freaking out about what to do next." I connected her with the organization, and by evening she had an intake meeting set for Tuesday. It wasn't a long-term fix, but it would give her a safe place to land while she planned her future. That night, Claire and I sat on the pier, our feet skimming the cool lake water just like I used to with Granddad. The sunset cast the water in hues of peach and lavender, a stark contrast to the day's ugliness. "Do you think Mark will keep stirring up trouble?" Claire asked. I sighed. "Probably. He's hurt and spiteful, but I've talked to a lawyer and my ownership is rock solid. The most he can do is try to turn the family against me." "Mom and Dad are with you," Claire said. "I told them everything. They're appalled by what he did." The next day brought a surprising find. While tidying the guest room Mark and Ivy had briefly used, I found a pile of overdue bills tucked in a nightstand drawer. Credit card statements with maxed-out balances. A foreclosure notice for a condo I didn't know Mark owned. A collection letter from a short-term loan company. "He's broke," I said, showing Claire. "That's why he was so desperate for the retreat." Claire scanned the documents. "This explains everything. His sudden obsession with family property, pushing for free housing." I felt a surge of understanding. He wasn't just acting entitled, he was financially cornered. This didn't justify Mark's behavior, but it shed light on why he'd been so relentless. He didn't just want the retreat, he needed it to stay afloat. Over the next few days, Claire and I settled into a new routine at the retreat. She decided to stay for the week, working remotely while I did the same. We took breaks to swim in the lake, wander the nearby trails, and reconnect as sisters. I also visited Ivy at the Women's Network, dropping off her remaining belongings and helping her explore support options for single moms. Despite everything, we started building a cautious friendship. Mark keeps calling, she admitted during one visit. Mark's calls swing between groveling and finger pointing. The counselor here says that's classic manipulative behavior, Ivy said. Are you responding to him? I asked. Ivy shook her head. I'm focused on building a secure future for this baby. I can't let that kind of drama into our lives. Her resilience struck me. Facing pregnancy, displacement, and betrayal, she was making tough but wise choices. 2 weeks after the showdown, I got a certified letter from a lawyer claiming Mark had established residency at the retreat and was owed compensation for his unlawful eviction. My attorney fired back with our evidence: texts denying permission, Deputy Carter's witness statement, and the deed in my name alone. Mark's lawyer went silent after that. A month later, I uncovered another gift from Granddad Henry. While sorting through his old oak desk, I found a worn journal I'd never seen before. Its pages held his reflections on family, legacy, and property. An entry from 3 months before his passing stopped me cold. I'm leaving the retreat to Lauren alone. Some might see it as favoritism, but it's about guardianship. She gets that this place isn't just land, it's a haven. It demands care and gives wisdom in return. Others view it as a resource, but Lauren sees its heart. She'll face pressure to share it, but I hope she holds strong. Some gifts lose their magic when split. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I read his words. Even from beyond, Granddad had foreseen the battles I'd face and urged me to stand firm. I had that entry framed and hung it by the hearth, a constant reminder of his insight and my hard-earned boundaries. I took practical steps to safeguard the retreat. I installed security cameras at the entrances. I drafted a formal rental agreement for any future family use with clear rules and time limits. I had the property lines surveyed and marked with stakes. These weren't born of fear, but of respect for the haven Granddad entrusted to me. Gradually, the retreat regained its serene vibe. The nursery room became my cozy reading corner again, then a small office for remote work, letting me stretch my visits from weekends to whole weeks. By the 4-month mark, the emotional wounds had started to mend. The retreat no longer felt stained by Mark's invasion but fortified by the boundaries I'd set. One night, watching fireflies flicker over the lake from the pier, I had a revelation. In protecting my inheritance, I'd also claimed Granddad's resilience, his courage to hold fast to what matters, his wisdom to pair kindness with limits. That realization felt like the final step in my healing. 4 months after what Claire and I dubbed the takeover, life settled into a new rhythm. Mark's legal threats fizzled when his lawyer saw my airtight ownership. My bond with Claire grew deeper through our shared journey of standing up to Mark. Ivy found her stride at the Willow Creek Women's Network, landing a part-time virtual job that worked around her pregnancy and later, her newborn. When baby Liam arrived 5 weeks after the retreat clash, I visited them in the hospital, bringing a plush turtle toy that reminded me of the ones in Lake Serenity. "Aunt Lauren, here," Ivy said to the tiny bundle in her arms, catching me off guard with the title. "Aunt," I asked softly. "You've been more family to us than Liam's actual dad," Ivy said. "Mark hasn't even texted to check if the baby was born." That moment clarified something profound. Family isn't always blood or vows, it's forged in crisis, empathy, and the choices we make in tough times. The retreat itself had been both physically and emotionally restored. The guest room, briefly a nursery, was now my home office, letting me work remotely most of the month. My ad agency, impressed by my handling of the Pure Vita crisis, promoted me to creative director with a flexible schedule. Even my parents visited, their first trip to the retreat since Granddad passed. They brought his favorite fishing rod, which Mark had broken in his outburst, now expertly repaired. "Your granddad would be so proud," Dad said as we stood on the pier. "Not just for keeping this place up, but for defending it." Mom nodded. "It takes guts to hold boundaries, especially with family. Henry knew you had that strength." Family dynamics had shifted for good. Mark had moved to Seattle for a new chapter, per mutual friends. Claire filed for divorce and started therapy to unpack the manipulation she'd endured in their marriage. My connection with Ivy blossomed into a genuine friendship. Once a month, I drove to Willow Creek to visit her and Liam, often bringing groceries or watching him so she could have a break. Looking back at the retreat drama, Ivy said during one visit while Liam napped, "It taught me something big about boundaries." "What's that?" I asked, intrigued. "They're not just about shutting others out," she said. "They're about saying yes to yourself. When you stood your ground against Mark, you weren't just rejecting him, you were honoring yourself and your granddad's legacy." Her perspective hit me deeply. I hadn't seen it like that. "I'm learning to set boundaries too," Ivy added. "With Mark, with my family who think I should reconcile for Liam's sake, with everyone who has opinions about my life." We sat in easy, quiet, two women forever linked by a conflict neither chose but both grew from. Back at the retreat, I started new traditions while keeping old ones alive. The yearly family Labor Day picnic went on, but with clear expectations set beforehand. Granddad's fishing contest became a catch-and-release event, teaching younger cousins about protecting nature. I also created a formal retreat usage policy. Family could request short stays with advance notice and agreement to strict guidelines. The policy was fair but firm, balancing respect for the property and my ownership. Most relatives avoided staying after Mark's stunt, sidestepping the awkward memory, but Claire came often, finding peace in the tranquil setting. One evening, as autumn splashed the woods with vibrant reds and golds, I flipped through Granddad's journal again. A passage I'd missed before caught my eye. "Property isn't just land or structures. It's a duty, a trust. Owning something makes you its caretaker, not just its holder. The retreat's value isn't in its price tag. It's in the wisdom it holds, the memories it guards, the refuge it offers. That's why I'm so deliberate about its future. Not everyone grasps that kind of responsibility." His words echoed everything I'd learned through this ordeal. The retreat wasn't just a getaway or a piece of real estate. It was a legacy of values, respect for limits, love for nature, and the strength to protect what's dear. As I wrap up this chapter, I'm thankful for its hard lessons. Learning to stand tall against manipulation, seeing the line between true need and entitlement, realizing that sometimes the kindest act is holding firm boundaries. I'm curious about your own stories with family boundaries. Have you ever had to stand up to someone close who disrespected your space or choices? How did you navigate it? What did you take away? Drop your experiences in the comments below. If this story hit home, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life tales. Your support keeps this channel sharing stories that might lift others in similar struggles. Remember, Boundaries aren't barriers to shut people out, they're roadmaps for how to stay in your life with respect. Sometimes the boldest act of self-care is saying no when everything's pushing you to say yes. Thanks for joining me on this ride. Until next time, this is Lauren Mitchell, sending courage to anyone fighting to protect their own haven.